If it's available under the FOIA, then that's fine. If it requires an introduction of some kind, then part of the work that I've already done is to identify people who are willing to give me those introductions if it's necessary. That's a part of the work that I've done already here.
Within FFIEC, it's the Federal Financial Institutions Examination.
Right, sorry.
Under there is the OCC, Office of Control of the Currency,
Correct.
Federal Reserve, FDIC. You may want to go down into the subgroup.
All the financial institutions are covered on the
Right,
FDIC.
All the regulatory.
All the regulatory.
Yeah, and that's why I listed here, because I think that would give me a much broader source of information.
And also within the ABA, which is the professional group, there's other subgroups like FIBA, Florida International Bankers.
Right.
If you can get one of those organizations to solicit your cooperation from the private institutions.
What's his name? Is the chairman of the local chapter here. He teaches in finance for us.
Well, Marcos Cabral,
Yes.
who's active in FIBA.
He's very active.
Yeah. And because that'll be, my biggest concern is a lot of the data, a lot of these institutions are proprietary. And
Or that I don't have a big enough aim by just going over the right.
So how many, your N here is the number of document types.
Correct.
How many, what would be sort of like the minimal that you need?
I think the minimum, normally for a logistic regression, minimum would be about 100. Small? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm working on something with 200 and I have confidence intervals that are way too big for me, you know.
Okay.
You know.
So probably 200, 300 you're looking at?
That can be challenging. 500.
Ouch.
Because those logistics.
500, okay.
Logistic needs a lot
Big,
more.
big.
Now there is an
500 document types.
No way.
Oh no, no.
N is document types.
N is document type.
N is document type.
Okay.
N is document types. And in a given row,
No.
Because you're doing
N is document types.
Which document types is not going to be.
That's something different.
Document type will be very small.
Okay,
very
that's,
small.
no, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's going to be very small. Okay, I'm thinking.
So for the analysis to hold up,
Have the, like.
this is what, we have to hash this out. For the analysis to
But
hold
even on
up,
50,
if you're saying he needs an N.
No.
consider all the United Nations passports.
The end for that.
200.
There may not be.
No, the end for that could
500
be
in the
something,
world.
that's substantively driven. I mean, document type sheet.
I don't know that you're going to get 100 document types.
Yeah.
Well, remember that I'm talking about issuing institutions.
50 states.
There's 50 right there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but then the problem would be, you know, if you go to a
Problem is collecting
they're not
data
using
from,
most of the.
yeah, collecting data on 50
Agreed.
states is going to
And
be a
then
problem.
that's when I go to the international organization and to the federal levels, because that then gives me access.
Just
to
to comment,
that.
this is
How many
a
countries in
trick.
the world?
Because it's the inter-organizational use. For instance, the state of Alaska probably doesn't know how often their driver's licenses are fraudulently used, because they merely issue them. They're not the ones that suffer the misuse or the abuse of them.
Right.
The ones that suffer the abuse are the financial institutions, everybody that's...
The ones who are
Yeah.
assessing them
Yeah.
as being credible or not, right?
I think the only way you can save the goal is probably instead of getting the first column data by interview, trying to get it from some database.
Yeah, well, as I said,
Yeah,
I
so
think
in that-
I go to the
In that way, probably you can,
Or the professional
like if you can get some document from some federal agency, you can definitely get data fraud probability for all the 50 states probably at least 50 countries.
That's
That
50
gives
countries.
that gives you 100.
That is 20 each state.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
There's 192 different countries. Let's get all their passports.
Of course, I may not have anybody from the Vatican who is there, but
They probably have a database.
but for sure, I mean, you know, we're laughing, but obviously that's an issue here is getting a sufficiently large
Maybe,
data.
maybe the people who sell the fake ISPs.
Ken, I wouldn't count out the possibility that the states keep track of how many to either case studies or to actual arrest and how many people are actually using their driver's license fraudulently.
I'm not.
Because they have to come up with different methodologies for issuing them so that they're tamper-proof.
But I'm not
So
looking at that.
they might know what the document type, what the frequency is.
They might, but remember, I'm looking at this from the perspective of the organization that's trying to make an assessment. Now, yes, agreed, I might be able to go to the immigration people and say, what's the incidence of fraud among particular types of passports, for example. Or I might be able to go to the federal level and get some idea of what the incidence of fraud is among different driver's licenses, different state driver's licenses, potentially. Yeah. Because remember, I'm looking at this from an identity document type level, and I'm looking at it from one institution, from the reviewing institution's
So you're basically
perspective.
looking at more like, okay, you know, this is this particular institution, and in their experience, they've had X instance of fraud involved in that document entry.
That's one way of going about it. But of course, I'm not just looking at one institution.
Because then you have,
I'm-
you know, if you look at 5 institutions in Florida, and, you know, each one has had some experience. So institution X says, well, we've had, you know, so many instances of fraud with this particular document. And then you have another observation where some other institution has a different experience with the same document. So you actually have multiple.
Right, and at the level I'm looking at it here, I'm actually looking at it at the level that I'm looking at here, each line item is going to have combined for multiple institutions, because 6 different institutions, each of them may have experience with, let's say 10 Florida driver's licenses. So what I'm going to have here in this first line item
Would be the combined?
would be the combined experience of all the institutions that I've looked at.
Then how you can make the enlarge? That bit of the question.
Make the what, sorry?
Enlarge.
Well, that's going to be dependent on the document type, which may be, and that's what I started out saying, that if that one of the potential problems is that my N is too small, and then that's when I would need to go to the higher level to try and get a broader range of document types.
So that actually does, these comments go back to what I was saying for, if you're talking about like driver's license, how many?
Florida driver's license.
Florida
National
driver's license, how many cases that do you have? Yeah, for logistic you need a lot of cases. There's something called exact logistic that will do like less than 100. Okay, which is, takes a big powerful computer. I just tried doing something that didn't work on my PC.
Okay.
Are you Apple? Oh, no, okay.
This is the new state of 10, I kept memory exhausted. But
I'll put you in that chair over there.
but that isn't the new state of, and then the other ones have it, so it's for,
It's for relatively small ends, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Right.
Because logistic does need a lot, because it's maxing out, it's a lot more than ordinary squares. So, and then there are alternative sorts of things that are, never as powerful, but, and like looking at analysis of variance and things like that.
Okay. So in other words,
They would be,
as exact as this method, right, okay.
But you could use what they call, exact logistics, they're exact, they call it exact statistics, so they're for
Right.
very number